solving square roots by graphing, solving equations by graphing, square roots, and factoring. If we are solving by graphing, we are looking for x-intercepts, okay? If we're solving by square roots or factoring, we're looking for x equals. So what should my answers look like if I'm solving by graphing? They should be points, right? Because aren't x-intercepts points? So like x comma 0 and another x comma 0? Will there always be 2? No, we've had this discussion before, right? It might just sit right on the x-intercept. Is there any other options besides 2 or 1? What? Can a parabola cross the x-axis 3 times? How? A parabola. We're only talking about parabolas, so no, right? So it can either cross 2 times or 1 time. Is that it? What about no times? What are we going to write? Now you're looking at me confused because yesterday I showed you how to get the answer if it's negative, right? But if we're really talking about a coordinate plane graph, what do we write as our answer if the parabola does not cross the x-axis? Not just no solution, but no real solution, right? There are solutions. We talked about them yesterday. They're imaginary, right? But there's no real solution, okay? So let's draw those real quick so we remember our options. There's 3 options. We can either do like this, so that there's 2 solutions. We could do like this. Now this isn't the only way it can look, but I'm just giving you an idea. 1 solution, or no real. Okay so far? Okay. If I say to you, take this equation right here and solve it by graphing, what is your first inclination to want to do? Calculator. That's what I would reach for, right? The calculator. Now, is that the only way? No. And is it the only way I want you to know? No, not even close. Okay? But I do want you to be able to not accidentally turn the calculator off right after you turn it on. Ridiculous. I do want you to be able to make, not a calculator, seriously, Kingston, a graph. And I want you to be able to put in x squared plus 5x plus 6 and hit enter. And from this, I need you to be able to tell me where the solutions are. Can you assume by looking at this graph where the solutions are? Oh my gosh, have you ever taken geometry? Can you ever assume by looking at a graph? No, freaks. Are you pretty confident that it's -2 and -3? So am I, but where's the proof? Yeah, that's where I can look first place is the table. What am I looking for on the table? Okay, what about it though? What's going to give me the proof that that's an intercept? Yeah, the y is 0, right? The y is 0. That's my proof. Do you know the other way? That's exactly what you can do. Menu, analyze, 0. If I choose 0, it gives me this line and says lower bound. That means it wants me to put it on the lower side or the left side of the point. Then I click it and I move it to the right side of the point and oh my gosh, it already showed up. I didn't even click it yet, did I? But watch this. Now the other one showed up. They won't show up at the same time. I can't get them to show up at the same time like that. The only way I can make them show up at the same time is if I click it and then start over. Menu, analyze, graph, 0. Put it on the left-hand side. Move it to the right-hand side. Okay? That's messy to read, isn't it? Remember, it's got the little Lego hand like this right now. If I control middle button click on it, I can move it down so that I can see what my answers are. Now, we already looked at the table and knew that. We already guessed that from the graph, right? But we can't assume. We went to the table, saw the intercepts, or we can analyze graph and see the intercepts this way. Either way, my solution should look like this. That you can't see. Awesome. My solution should look like this. -2, 0. -3, 0. Done. Now, I know some of you were trying to do another mathematical way, and absolutely you can factor this and get x minus 2 or x plus 2 and x plus 3, except what were the directions again? Solve by graphing, right? So if we're specifically solving by graphing, we're not doing that. Although I have to give props to some people earlier, they did that, x plus 2 and x minus 3, and you know what they said? Oh my gosh, that's an intercept form. Now, this one equals y and theirs equals 0, but we know that those are the same, right? If we're trying to graph, we got to get it equal to 0 so we can put it in the calculator, right? So I thought that was pretty awesome that they recognized that. Okay? Any questions about that? Are you confident in graphing? So when we're graphing, what do we have to get it equal to before we can solve it? 0. Okay? Next thing I need you to be able to do is solve it by square roots. You think you can do that? Okay. A couple examples. X squared plus 4 equals 20. If we're solving by square roots, what do we need to get it equal to? Not 0 this time. I got to get all the variables on one side, all the constants on the other side, right? I'm trying to isolate the x squared. When am I going to solve by using square roots? When it's only x squared, right? I don't need an x there. If I've got an x squared and an x, I probably don't need to be solving it by square roots. Okay? But if all it is an x squared and then numbers, move the 4. X squared equals 16. I'm afraid to ask because I'm afraid of your answer. I'm hoping you get the right answer because I'm making a point of making you think about the right answer before we get there. So when you shout it out, I want you to shout out the right answer. What's the square root of 16? Plus or minus 4. Yes! Plus or minus 4. For the record, I heard those of you who said 4. Shame, shame on you. Shame, shame. Okay? Guys, here's the deal. Remember the fundamental theorem of algebra. It says my highest exponent, my degree, is the number of solutions I should get. I might get less, but mostly not. How many solutions should I get if I'm solving a quadratic? 2. Like this, right? Now, is it possible to get 1 or no real? Yes. When there's no real, how many imaginary solutions are there? 2. 2. Excellent. Okay? Think about it. If this was negative 16, if I took the square root of negative 16, what would I get? Plus or minus 4i. My favorite. Plus or minus 4i, right? That's still 2 solutions, isn't it? So when I get no real solutions, that's because there are 2 imaginary solutions. Okay? Let me do another example of square roots for you that you may want to do a different way, and I don't want you to do it the different way because you can get the right answer, but it's way harder. Okay? It just scares me thinking about it, that you would try to do it. What do you want to do first? Perfect. Okay, what do you want to do now? Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you said that. What do you think people that want to do it the super hard way want to do? Distribute. Yeah, we don't want to do that. Isn't this a squared term? Can't I take the square root of it? If I take the square root of it, what do I get on the left-hand side? 2x plus 5 and, cross my fingers. What do you get on the right-hand side? Okay, good. We'll just write it like that for right now. Hopefully you realize I can't leave it like that. Right? Why can't I leave it like that? Okay, so if I come over here real quick, can't I say the square root of 8 is 4 times 2? And don't I know the square root of 4? Isn't it 2 root 2? So really it's 2x plus 5 equals plus or minus 2 root 2. Good question, by the way. Now how do I solve this? So subtract 5 from both sides. Is there a right and a wrong order to put these two in? No, there's one that we typically do. Can I show you which order we typically write them in? Negative 5 plus or minus 2 root 2. If we can help it, we don't want to write anything after the root because we won't be able to tell if it's inside or outside, just like we talked about yesterday. Okay? And then to solve, divide both sides by 2. This is one possible answer. Can I show you the other possible answer? Or can you tell me the other possible answer? What's being divided by 2? Both of them. Both of the things in the numerator, right? So this is being divided by 2. And this is being divided by 2. Right? But won't this simplify to 1? So that it's really negative 5 over 2 plus or minus root 2. Let me scoot that up just a little bit. Is this an acceptable answer? Is this an acceptable answer? Is this one an acceptable answer? No, because it's not simplified yet, right? If you put this one or if you put this one, I will take either one of those. Okay? The only time I would not take this as an answer is if this right here was a 6. Because if that's a 6, you've got to do this, don't you? 6 divided by 2 and that divided by 2? Yeah? Okay. Any questions about that? You feel comfortable with that? You feel like you could do that by yourself? Okay, so when do we solve problems, quadratics, using square roots? If there's an x squared and no non-squared, right? If there's an x squared but no x's, that's when we're going to use square roots. Okay, last one. Factoring, your favorite thing to do. How are we going to solve this by factoring? What? Oh, great. Can I fix something real fast before we go on? This is the negative, and this is the positive. I just wrote my signs backwards. I apologize. Okay, can it be factored first of all? What to what? What? Oh, so AC. So 1 times 36 is 36. And B is negative 12. So what multiplies to be 36 and adds to be negative 12? Negative 6 and negative 6? Since the leading coefficient is 1, what can I write? If the leading coefficient was not 1, that's when I would split this into 2 parts, right? And then factor by grouping. But since my leading coefficient is 1, this is where I am. Now what do I do for that? How do I solve it by factoring? So like that? Both of them? Well, this one's kind of weird, isn't it? Excuse me, how many answers did I get? 2, but kind of 1, right? Now you know what happens when your graph looks like this. That's what's happening. I get 2 solutions. They're just the same. Okay? Any questions? Do I need to do any more examples of solving by factoring? I know you guys, how much you love factoring. Are you vomiting right now? Is that what you're doing? Awesome. Okay. So solve it by factoring. Get it equal to 0, right? So when we're graphing, what does it need to equal? It needs to equal 0. Let me choose an orange. When we're square rooting, what does it equal? It needs to equal x squared, doesn't it? Because then we can do square roots. When we're factoring, what does it need to equal? 0. When are we going to choose to solve by factoring? There's 2 times. So when it's something you can factor, for sure, you're going to solve by factoring. Okay? Usually it's when there's an x squared and an x. Absolutely. The other time you're always going to solve by factoring is if it says solve by factoring. That's the other time. Okay? Any questions?